Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Shoegaze Sundays. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Brenna, and I'm really excited to share a special episode with you. So first and foremost, if you're new to joining us, please click that subscription button as well as the bell to get notifications of when we have new episodes up and available. This is episode 45, so I decided to do a fun highlight video for you. Usually I show new releases or new songs that have come across my radar, but this week I'm going to particularly look at one of the early indie record labels. This is, of course, Sara Records. So Sara Records was around from 1987 to 1995. The founders, Matt Hines and Claire Wad, were both inspired by early creation releases, as well as listening to all of the wonderful things that John Peel selected on his radio programs. They both were very involved with the late 80s, early 90s zine culture. So they came together and decided to create their own label. They had kind of known about each other and had been in similar circles. However, they finally did meet face to face at a Julian Cope show where Primal Scream just happened to be supporting him, that act, Julian Cope. And they came together and decided to finally kick off their own independent music label. They decided on calling it Sara Records to kind of have it be a statement against the misogynistic landscape that the music industry was at the time. They really wanted any and all people to be represented versus having this kind of rock and roll males only club kind of mentality that was going on. Another thing that Sara Records did really to represent people equally as far as men and women, they didn't objectify women at all on their record albums. They kind of went for more abstract art or landscape types of things to kind of represent what was going on with their artists. So very groundbreaking, very important. Many of the bands that were on this label did get labeled as twee. Currently, we think of twee pop as a good thing, kind of having a hallmark song. However, at the time, twee was kind of a derogatory term, much like there's similar veins in the shoegaze genre where people didn't necessarily want to be called shoegaze bands. It was, oh, they're looking down at their feet, they're not connected. Twee very much was looked at as being simple, not having a lot of substance behind the lyrics. However, we now look at it fondly, and it's a good way to compartmentalize the types of music and the types of bands that we like. However, Sara Records really went against the grain and didn't want to have a definitive sound. They really wanted to welcome all different kinds of acts and kind of followed that. If it sounds good and has good lyrical components, if it's got a good song, we're going to represent them on our label. So they did have shoegaze acts. They did have a little harder edge Jesus and Mary Chain type acts, such as The Golden Dawn was a band that was on Sara Records that was always kind of looked at as being not necessarily fitting that label's sound. That label really tried not to have a sound, but many of the acts did kind of follow a certain sound stamp, one of which that I thoroughly enjoy, and that's why we're highlighting this record label today. So the first track I have to offer for you is from the Rosaries. This is a little later into the Sara catalog, but it definitely has some of those hallmark shoegaze sounds. Pay attention. If you go ahead, we're only going to listen to a clip, so hopefully the end of this song is represented as it has more of those fuzzier sounds. In the beginning, if you go back and do some research and listen to the entirety of this track, it does start out a little kind of twee and dream pop. However, the further along you go, it has a little more edge and teeth. So this is the track Leaving from the Rosaries on Sara Records. I hope you enjoy it. So the next track I have selected for you is the first release that ever was to come out on Sara Records in 1987. This is the Sea Urchins with Pristine, Christine. This song is just so lush and epic and beautiful. It really still holds up today. It was such a great way for Sara Records to kick off their label and show the world what they were made of. Here is a sample from Pristine, Christine by the Sea Urchins. So the next band I have for you was the second band that was released on Sara Records, though I didn't necessarily pick the track that was released. I picked a little later track to represent their sound. This is the Orchids with Something for Longing. The Orchids were, again, just a wonderful act that really represented Sara and their sound, and they were on the label for the entirety of the time that the label was around. So without further ado, here is Something for the Longing. So the next track I have for you does dip into more of a solid shoegaze sound. This is Eternal, not to be confused with the R&B UK act Eternal. This is a heavy shoegaze, beautiful sound. They were out on Sara Records, and I have chosen the track Breathe to share with you. However, I would highly, highly recommend seeking out this full EP. It is just a wonderful listen. It is excellent. This was Sara 31, if you're tracking those numbers and releases, as Sara did have a numbering system to go through their catalog, which included fun things such as the zines that they put out, which included flexies, as well as they had a board game to represent one of their landmarks. They did a lot of really fun stuff to kind of keep engaged with their listeners. Another fun thing about Sara Records, they really wrote a lot of letters. If listeners reached out to them, they made sure to do personalized notes when they sent out their releases. They were really all about connecting with their people and having that indie credibility. But I digress a little. We'll get back to the music. This is Eternal with Breathe. So the next band I have for you is a Sara Records band. However, they are wildly heralded as being a true early important shoegaze band as well. This is, of course, Secret Shine. Secret Shine was quite a bit heavier than what was being represented at the time on Sara Records. However, they had just beautiful, lush songs. As Claire had described in the documentary of Sara Records, she didn't really care if they had that big buzzy sound, but it was all about the song. So they weren't necessarily trying to not be a shoegaze label. However, the acts that they had that had more of those shoegaze hallmarks really had to have good songs as well. She wanted the songs, not just the sound. That's one of the things that I look for with my favorite shoegaze acts as well. So I can absolutely stand by that statement. So I have picked the track Into the Ether by Secret Shine. Secret Shine happens to also be in a fun, elitist sort of club where, for whatever reason, if you decided to put a cat on your album, that means it's going to be some great classic shoegaze fodder. So Chapter House with the swirled white cat. We had Pale Saints with the cute Siamese kitty they have on their album. This album also had a lovely little feline on the cover. So without further ado, here is a clip from Into the Ether by Secret Shine. So that's our show for this week. If you want more information regarding Sara Records, My Secret World is the documentary that talks about the label. It is excellent. I highly recommend it. A quick Google search will let you be able to rent that, stream that, take a peek. I loved watching it. It was excellent. It definitely gave me insight into some early shoegaze, some early twee, some early beginnings of what we think of as our overall shoegaze and dream pop landscape that we all love and enjoy. I'm always happy to give a highlight show, do a little something different. But next week we will be back to new releases and our classic track format. I appreciate all of you tuning in. I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and I hope you always continue to shoegaze on.